From the time you were old enough to understand, you've been programmed with one of the most hypocritical and paralyzing dogmas of modern civilization, the moral obligation to forgive. They teach it to you in school. They preach it in religions. And nowadays, the modern therapy industry prescribes it to you as if it were a magic pill. Let go of resentment, they tell you. Hatred is a poison you take yourself, hoping the other person will die. You've been convinced that holding on to the memory of betrayal, humiliation, or theft makes you a toxic and stagnant person. They demand that you cleanse your heart, send light to your enemies, and quickly turn the page to become a peaceful, smiling, and productive citizen once again. But if we set aside this cheap poetry and analyze reality through the cold, ruthless lens of power, dark psychology reveals a diametrically opposed picture. The system doesn't ask you to forgive because it's concerned about your peace of mind. The system demands you forgive because a man who harbors resentment, a man who doesn't forget and channels his anger toward an implacable goal, is an utterly uncontrollable force of nature. Modern society has a pathological fear of justified male aggression. They want to castrate your instinct for retribution. If someone cheats you in business, if a partner betrays you, or if someone tramples on your name, the natural, biological, and evolutionary reaction of a strong man is to demand justice, or, failing that, to destroy his opponent by surpassing him on every possible level. But the system tells you, don't get angry, meditate, and let it go. By convincing you to let go of your anger, they're stealing your primary source of energy. They're disarming you before you even step onto the battlefield. They're asking you to throw away the nuclear fuel that could propel you to greatness. To understand why unconditional forgiveness is a trap, we must invoke the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche spoke of this slave morality. He observed that, throughout history, weak people, those who lacked the physical, financial, or intellectual power to defend themselves, invented a value system to make their weakness appear to be a noble virtue. Think about it logically. If someone publicly humiliates you, and you lack the courage, strength, or resources to confront them and demand respect, your ego can't bear the reality that you're a coward. So your brain creates a brilliant psychological defense mechanism. You say you've forgiven them. You say you're a better person and that you're leaving it to karma. That forgiveness doesn't stem from kindness, love, or a higher spiritual evolution. It stems from pure, unadulterated powerlessness. You forgive because you lack the capacity to punish. Your supposed moral superiority is merely an elegant mask to conceal your utter terror of conflict. The strategic man, the dark strategist, is disgusted by this false virtue. He understands that true forgiveness, the only kind that has real value in this brutal universe, can only be granted by the one who holds the sword in his hand, resting it against his enemy's neck, and consciously chooses not to cut. If you lack the power to destroy the one who hurt you, your forgiveness is not mercy. It is submission. When you rush to forgive those who have wronged you, simply to avoid the discomfort of anger, you are sending a lethal message to your own subconscious. You are telling your mind that your honor, your time, and your effort are worthless, that anyone can come in, plunder your kingdom, and walk away without paying a price. You are inviting predators to feed on you again, if unconditional. Forgiveness is the tactic of the weak. What is the weapon of kings? The answer lies in taming your own shadow. The answer is strategic resentment. You've been lied to, led to believe that resentment is a base and destructive emotion. And they're right about one thing: unprocessed resentment, the kind expressed through crying, complaining to friends at a bar, or posting passive-aggressive messages on social media, is pathetic. It consumes you and makes you look like a bitter loser. But when you take that same dark, heavy, suffocating rage, cut out its tongue so it can't speak, and lock it away in the engine room of your mind, an alchemical reaction occurs. That resentment ceases to be an emotional poison and becomes enriched uranium. It becomes mathematical aggression, sheep motivation, self-help videos, and inspirational quotes might give you the energy to hit the gym or work on your business for a week. But when you're exhausted, when it's 4 a.m. in winter, your body aches, and your mind begs you to go back to sleep, motivation won't save you. Do you know what will pull you out of bed like a shot of adrenaline? The vivid, untarnished memory of the man who laughed at your failures, the memory of the woman who left you because you are broke, the memory of the boss who treated you like you were disposable trash. That cold hatred, channeled through military discipline, will give you superhuman resilience. The dangerous man doesn't meditate to forget his enemies. He meditates to remember exactly what they did to him and use that image like a whip across his own back, forcing himself to achieve levels of success, wealth, and physical power that his detractors could never even imagine. In the next stage of this dark manual, we will reveal exactly how to transform this chaotic fire into a routine of military discipline, and why silent revenge through absolute superiority is the only emotional closure your mind truly needs. The biggest mistake men make when trying to use their anger is confusing emotional outbursts with real power. When society warns you that holding a grudge is bad, they're usually referring to raging anger. That uncontrollable rage that makes you scream, punch walls, send insulting texts at 3 a.m., or seek childish, quick revenge that ends up ruining your own reputation. That kind of anger is pathetic. It's the tantrum of a child who doesn't know how to process that the world isn't fair. When you explode emotionally in front of the person who hurt you, you're handing them the ultimate prize. You're confirming that they have absolute power over your nervous system. You're showing them that they succeeded in destabilizing you. The shadowy strategist, the dangerous man, never, under any circumstances, allows his enemies to see him bleed or lose his composure. He practices what in circles of power is known as cold fury. Cold fury is the highest level of emotional control. It's when you feel your blood boil from the betrayal, but your face becomes an impenetrable marble mask. You don't raise your voice. You don't threaten. You don't offer explanations or demand apologies you know will be false. You simply look your opponent in the eye with deathly calm. Process the information that this person is now a marked target. Turn around and silently retreat. This absolute restraint terrifies others. Silence in the face of a serious offense is psychologically unbearable for the person who offended you. Because they don't know what you're thinking, they don't know what you're planning, and most importantly, they realize they've just awakened a calculating monster instead of a whining victim. You've taken all the thermal energy of the offense and stored it in the freezer of your mind to use as you please. Once you've bottled up your resentment and mastered the cold fury, you must give it structure. Anger without direction is madness. Anger with a plan of execution is called military discipline. This is where you separate your path from modern mediocrity. While the healing industry tells you to write letters of forgiveness and burn them in a ritual, the psychology of conquest demands that you write a 5-year war plan. You won't forgive the person who humiliated you because you lacked money, status, or physical strength. You'll use the memory of their laughter and contempt like the cruelest and most effective drill sergeant in the world. When the alarm goes off at 5 a.m. and your weak mind tries to convince you to stay in bed because it's cold, don't. Look for motivational quotes online. Search the dark archives of your memory. Remember the humiliation. Remember the exact pain in your chest when you were betrayed. Picture the faces of your detractors. Feel the poison coursing through your veins. Jump up and get to work. Make every rep at the gym, every complex book you read, every new technical skill you learn, and every dollar you add to your bank account a brick in the construction of an impregnable fortress. Your physical and intellectual training is no longer a mere feel-good pastime. It's combat training. You're preparing so that, tomorrow, the power disparity between you and those who hurt you will be so vast and monstrous that they'll seem like mere ants before a titan. Discipline doesn't come from happiness. Unwavering discipline, the kind that forges empires, almost always stems from a deep wound that a man refused to forgive and decided to use as an internal combustion engine. The ultimate goal of this dark process isn't to seek out those who hurt you and rub your success in their faces. That's a fantasy of insecure teenagers who still need their tormentors' approval. If you spend 5 years building an empire, developing a sculpted physique, and cultivating a steely mind, only to go back and tell your ex-partner or former boss, "Look, what you missed out on. If you do that, you failed." You remain their slave. You continue to orbit around their validation. You continue to need them to acknowledge your worth. True Stoic mastery, the pinnacle of the dangerous man's power, is silent vengeance. It is the act of using resentment to propel yourself so high in the hierarchy of the material, intellectual, and spiritual world. When you finally reach the top, you look down and realize that the people who hurt you no longer matter. They have become so microscopically small, so irrelevant, and so caught up in their own mediocre lives that spending a single second of your newfound, powerful life thinking about them would be an insult to yourself. Your revenge is not to actively destroy them. Your revenge is to render them obsolete. It is the absolute murder of the ego. Your resounding success, your financial sovereignty, and your unshakable peace won through war are the death warrant for their memory. One day, they will hear your name. They will see what you have built. They will see the power you exude and the respect the world commands. And in that instant, in the silence of their own homes, the crushing reality of their own mediocrity, and the weight of having underestimated the wrong man will be a psychological torture far more brutal, elegant, and lasting than any physical revenge you could have planned. You don't need to lift a finger against them. Your simple and majestic existence will be their daily punishment. Understand this. Resentment alone, if left to fester in your mind, is an acid that will eat you alive from the inside. For resentment to become a military discipline, it must be transmuted through physical pain and extreme intellectual effort. This is the law of thermodynamics applied to dark psychology. When you feel anger rising in your throat at the memory of a betrayal, don't sit on the couch staring at your phone. That's the reaction of a weak man trying to numb his pain with cheap dopamine. A dangerous man takes that 1,000-volt electrical charge and plugs it straight into his war machine. Are you furious because they made you feel worthless? Perfect. Open that finance book, sit down at your computer, and don't get up until you've built a new source of income. Do you feel the poison of humiliation burning in your chest? Excellent. Go to the gym, add more weight to the bar, and lift that iron until your muscles scream for mercy. The pain of hard work is the only true antidote to the pain of betrayal. You are taking the dark energy your enemies gifted you and using it to fund your own rise to the top of the pyramid. Every drop of sweat is a silent declaration of war. Every dollar earned is another brick in the fortress of your invulnerability. In aerospace engineering, a rocket needs massive, heavy boosters filled with highly volatile fuel to escape Earth's gravity. But once the rocket breaks through the atmosphere and enters deep space orbit, those boosters detach and fall into the void. They are no longer needed. The rocket now travels in the absolute silence of space, propelled by its own momentum. Your resentment works in exactly the same way. In the beginning, when you're down, broken, hurt, and surrounded by the weight of mediocrity, you need that dark, heavy hatred to pull yourself out of the hole. You need to use the fury of not being valued as your primary fuel. But something magical and terrifying happens when you apply this military discipline for years. One day, you wake up in a house you built, look out over your financial empire, feel the physical strength of your iron-forged body, and realize you've shattered the atmosphere. You've reached a level of power, status, and unshakable peace that is completely beyond the reach of the parasites who hurt you in the past. And at that level of absolute sovereignty, resentment simply falls away. You are no longer angry, not because you have forgiven them in the weak, submissive sense of the word, but because you have become so superior to the situation that hating them would require looking down on them, and a king never bows his head. To look at insects. Modern society, with its obsession with passive healing, wants to steal your fierceness. They want you to forgive quickly so you don't cause trouble, so you fit back into the herd, so you remain harmless. But you no longer play by the slave's rules. From today onward, you cancel your obligation to forgive those who don't deserve it. From today onward, you claim the divine right to use your scars as war maps. Don't suppress your darkness. Don't feel guilty about your aggression. Tame the beast, put it on an iron collar of discipline, and use it to conquer the territory that belongs to you. Let the rest of the world continue forgiving betrayals and weeping in group therapy. Not you. You will use every insult, every closed door, and every taunt as the blueprint for your greatness. The dangerous man does not forgive. The dangerous man transcends, crushes resistance, and reigns in the sepulchral silence of his own victory.